Hello everybody, hope you're doing fantastic. This is Brett Tadlock, TN Artist. Going to work on a new painting today. Thought we might have some fun messing around with some different stuff. So just a, landscape again. So what we've got here is just a 8x10 canvas. So it's 8x10, 150 dpi, pretty standard for what I do here. The canvas that I've chosen is the canvas here, and the color is this one right here. And I've got it set to pigment, and I'm going to play around with some of the watercolor, I think, for a little bit. So I thought this would be kind of a nice kind of a sky color, and I'll play around with some of the oils and acrylics and that kind of stuff too. So it'll be kind of a mixed media, but wanted to play around with some of the watercolor. So I've got the Naples yellow selected color-wise, and I'm going to bring the opacity down because I just want a kind of a hint of it. And I'm going to pause the diffusion. I'm also going to wet the layer, and I just want to kind of bring in, I'm going to add a little bit more. There we go. So I'm thinking maybe, you know how you have like clouds that kind of sweep in, kind of like I forget what they're called. Anyway, clouds that kind of sweep in like this right before you're going to have storms the next day. So I just want to kind of play around with some of those. Just some kind of wispy clouds. Kind of lay those in. And I'm using my cloud foam watercolor brush. So I got that there. And then I might grab, keep them with the same color. Maybe this cloud brush here. It's going to give us just a little bit of a different feel. Okay, and then press 4. Kind of smear that a little bit. I want to kind of soften it. Maybe kind of help soften some of that too. And let's unpause the diffusion. And pause it. And I've still got that same brush selected on 4 as well. So I'm just going to kind of follow the same direction that these were and kind of just really soften them up. Like so. Just kind of an interesting look. Alright. Now over here, I want to go with this wash round. And I'm going to select this background color. Click on it. Come up just a little bit more blue. Across, like so. Go down a little bit. Make a new layer. Put that layer below it. Go above that. Press 4 and just kind of soften that. Come back up to this one, just kind of soften it. Bring that size down with my left bracket a little bit. And I want this to really just kind of fade into it, so it's really light. And now I want to grab maybe this pale dogwood. Bring that back up a little bit. Just kind of bring that pinkish color over it. Unpause it. Pause it. So that kind of gives it a chance to blend together a little bit there. want to put just a little bit of this cadmium orange light, but I really want to bring that opacity down. So let's bring it down to like maybe 5%. Just a little hint of it right here in the middle. That's a little too much, so Control Z. Control Z again. Maybe one more time, because it kind of delayed there on me, so I put a little bit too much on it. And then press 4, and just kind of, again, soften it out. I'm going to grab this cadmium yellow here. Press 4. Unpause the diffusion. Just kind of blend the edges a little bit. Pause the diffusion. Left bracket to bring that size down and just kind of go around the edges and blend it a little bit. Okay. And now I want to grab maybe this gray lilac. This is all about subtlety and building up some different colors here and there. Kind of pushing this back a little bit. Come down to this bottom layer. A pink tone again. Add just a little bit of that here and there. I'm going to add a new layer. And I'm going to go to this color here, which is almost white, but not quite. I'm going to come over towards the yellow a little bit. Make it a little bit more dull. Let's go back to this cloud foam. Sprinkle that in here and there around some of this. And then press 4. Keep your strokes really horizontal here. And what that's going to do is make it feel like maybe this is a layer of clouds below the other layer of clouds. Something like that. So it's just kind of a soft build up. Okay. And then for this next part, jump over here. So I'm going to look for maybe my, we can even use like the grainy pen. Bring the size up a little bit. And I'm just going to bring in some soft wisps of clouds and just kind of sketch in with this whitish color. Kind of where I want them to be. Then I'm going to go back to 4, bring my size up, very lightly go back over them, almost obliterating them. even grab a little bit of that yellow color. Add a little bit of that on top of it. Like so. A little bit of that white back on top of that. Press 4. Just kind of, again, smudge it. Don't get rid of all of it, but just almost to that point where it just about is going to be obliterated. Like so. Just kind of softly building up these layer of wispy clouds. Like that. Okay. I'm going to grab this Naples yellow, and right about here, let's put a little bit of this around. And let's grab a little cad yellow, that around. The cad orange, like so. Alright, so now we got those in there. Press 4 very lightly and start blending all these together. And what we're going to get is this nice gradation. And this is really light. If you have a good pressure sensitive brush or pen tool, then you want to go really soft and really blend it. And this is eventually where our sun will live. Okay, now what we're doing is we're letting this background kind of negative paint where some of the clouds will be. By leaving this here, that almost becomes like a cloud sitting in front of where the sun is. Okay. Alright, now we're going to take a little bit of this pinkish color, put that around here, and we're going to grab a little of this lilac, put that around there. And then we're going to kind of blend it as well, so that all these kind of fuse into each other. Like so. And I just went ahead quick fast dried it there so I didn't have to keep it paused for the diffusion. Because that takes up a little bit more memory for it to be paused. And I'm just kind of circle blending, just kind of going around in a circle, blending that. Like so. I'm going to bring the size down. Just kind of streak out some of that. Something like that. And you could even, if you've got like too harsh of a blend here, you can come up to the smudge tool, go to the soft, and switch to that, and that'll give you the much more consistent soft blend than using the pen. I a lot of times like to use the pens themselves and the brushes themselves to blend because I get kind of a more consistent, cohesive look, like you're using an actual brush to blend with. But there are times that you just get a really harsh line sometimes with it, so you need to switch to the smudge tool. And this was one of those times. So it just kind of softens it out. There we go. Alright. So now what I want to do is I want to grab this lilac and I'm going to bring it down a little bit darker right here. That's going to bring me back to the grainy brush. I want to kind of draw in the idea of a cloud that's right here, kind of in front. I'm going to switch back to my smudge, maybe even soft 2, a little bit bigger, and just kind of fade that off. Something along the lines of that. Now, if I think, it's a little too dark, then I can always select around it, come back in it, break up the shape a little bit, and then switch back to my smudge tool and soften it. Just like so. And that gives me a much more subtle cloud, kind of fading off. That cloud on up, maybe add a little bit more to it. And now I've got that there. Again, kind of come back and soften this. Like that. Maybe grab this color here. Add in a little bit of a cloud shape. Blend it out a little bit. Like so. Maybe something like that. Add a few little sparkles of highlight before we go in and add in some of the extra highlights. Leave that little rim of silver lining. And just a little bit there as well. Quick smudge. So that kind of helps break that up, give a little kind of a cool look. Alright. So now what I want to do is make another layer above that, turn off the pigment, turn on linear dodge. Go back to the white here. I'm going to hit the airbrush, bring that way down in size. Add that in right there. Grab the yellow. Like so. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. Blur up to right about there. It's a little too big, so I'm going to hit T. And I pressed Shift to hold the everything in the proper size. And I've got that there, so I'm going to hit E to turn on my eraser. And I'm going to erase some of this because I don't want it quite that perfect. Make it look like some of these clouds are cutting in front of it. Okay. Now we can go back to our grainy pen and add in some more wisps. Maybe up here. And a few maybe along here. Just kind of tap some in here and there. Push 4 and just kind of go back and soften. The main thing here is just keep it in the same direction. I'm going to push in and kind of go along the same thing again, just like that. Okay, and I'll even push E for erase and just kind of clean up some of that here and there. And I think that's going to give us kind of the cool spot. And we'll come back later, maybe play around with some of that. But I think that's a good place for our sun and clouds. So we'll leave that one there. So now what I want to do is I'm going to make a layer on top of this one, and let's put in a shoreline. So I'm going to come over here to my favorite brushes and grab my trees. We can use the watercolor ones. Let's come down to maybe ultramarine blue. Well, yeah, ultramarine blue, but we're not going to keep that bright blue. We're going to drop it down, desaturate it quite a bit. Like that. And then we're just going to, well, first of all, we're going to put it back on the number one. And then just kind of come in here and let this brush do its thing. Just kind of go along the shoreline. This brush responds to pressure. So we'll put in one direction there first. And then we're going to come back over and kind of break up, make it a little more uneven, like so. And like so. Let's turn off the tilt. Alright, so that's going to bring that forward. And we can bring this brush size down a little bit just to kind of change up the size. And just going vertical, up and down. And because this is the watercolor, it's going to diffuse anyway, so I'm not overly worried about it. If it was the oil color, the oil brush, then I'd pay a little bit more attention to it. Okay, and I'll push F to fast dry it. Maybe come in and just kind of throw in some different texture here and there. Again, push F to fast dry it. And I think that's going to give us kind of a really cool look. Now I would like to maybe add some ripples and the like, so I'm going to put that on 4. I'm just going to go up and down. Switch to the fan brush. Grab my stencil, turn off size ratio, say my shoreline is right about maybe there. Press 1, kind of color that in a little bit. and down to mock where this kind of the rough feel of what the shape of this is. Doesn't have to be exact. Just something like that. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to select some of this. Kind of come down roughly where that is. Roughly where that is. Roughly where that is. And just kind of fill in some of this lighter color. I'm not quite sure where I'm going to put this side of the bank, so I'm just going to fill it in a little bit. And then just kind of randomly here and there, like so. Actually, let me bring this down real quick. Right about here, I'm going to press Shift. Well, it's not going to do it while the stencil's here, but I'll come back and do it in a minute. Just throw in some highlights. Okay, so I've got some of that in there. I'm just going to soften this a little bit. Just like so. Okay, so now let me pause this. Okay, so we've got the water kind of put in here. And let's just take this and maybe soften it just a little bit more. Again, we've got the brush set on 4. There we go. All right, let's get rid of the stencil. Now let's make another layer. And I think let's come up to the selection tool, go to the freehand, go to add to, and maybe out here, let's do maybe a little rock there. And in here, maybe something like that. Maybe some Something along the lines like that. Now what I want to do is grab this color here, which again is this kind of purplish color. And we'll just go to the fill tool, darken that in. And let's go some of the brushes. Let's you can even use the seafoam brush, and maybe let's grab kind of this color here. Just kind of figure out where we want some of the highlights. So obviously we know where our light source is. And we can just make this kind of some flat stones. Bring this up a little bit. Shale or granite kind of stuff here. So just add some of that in. Like so. And let's grab a little bit of this Payne's gray as well. And all we're doing is just kind of throwing in some color. That's going to be our base for these rocks. It's Prussian blue maybe, just to add a little bit of something different. A little bit of this Van Dyke brown here and there. Okay, now we're going to put it on 4. Just kind of here and there smear this together. So again, this is kind of the underpainting. Change the size so you get a little bit different feel. Just trying to soften out some of the lines, like so. Control D. Okay. And that's going to help. We'll come back in and kind of soften this edge so it's not so crisp. Now we can grab our stencil, like maybe our stone stencil. Let's turn off lock size ratio. Rotate it maybe. Scrunch it a little bit, turn it, drag it down. You can right click and drag. And just kind of line up, and then you come back down here and select some of these. Then you can come back in, add lights here and there, kind of paying attention to which direction stencil is facing. So for example, I wouldn't want to do this here because then that doesn't match up really. But if I maybe bring it around, and it kind of does. And this is just, you know, again, the reason I use this is because you can get like a similar effect if I was using like a palette knife or something like that. All right, so as you can see, like I said, we're building up the textures here is really what we're doing. And just kind of getting that feeling, because some of this we're actually going to cover with some foliage and stuff, but I just want to kind of lay down some suggestion of stones and colors for anything that might peek through. And this doesn't have to have a whole lot of detail, just enough to, again, give that indication of, you know, if something's showing. So hopefully that makes sense. All right. Okay, so we've got some of that there. So I'm going to grab this bone black, and I want to throw in just a few, like, more dark shadows. Again, just to kind of set the stage if something kind of shows. There we go. Okay. Now there's also, I've got this pebbles one. So again, I'm going to turn off the lock ratio, stretch it out, which kind of gives it some perspective. Bring it down here. I'm going to back into this and turn on border, then right click and drag the whole thing over. I'm also going to come over here and click this to protect the transparency, so now I can't paint up here. And I want to just kind of throw in a few spots here and there. Maybe some stone looking things. Kind of like that. I can also turn this so that it kind of lines up with where some of this stuff matches up at. So like if I have a slope of a hill, it kind of goes with it. And then backspace. I'm going to hit T, and I want to stretch this just slightly past, and hit enter. And I got rid of that little white space that was there. Okay, so see, I've got that texture all built in there and everything now. Okay, so now on top of this, I'm going to make a new layer. And I'm going to come up here and let's grab this bush brush. And let's come to this dark gray again. But now I'm going to go over to this green. And I'm going to say OK. I'm going to zoom in. And let's add, just kind of add in some bushes along through here. And these can be just kind of scraggly. And just kind of have them go with the topography that you built up so they don't look like they're just kind of floating. Instead, they look like they're kind of going with it. And I'm going to grab, from that, I'm going to grab a little bit of this brownish color as well. Maybe this is going to be where we'll do some, like, you know, maybe some older plants or something that have started to kind of die off or something. But just again to add some variation of color. Something kind of like that. We can grab this green again. Kind of go back over that. And then you can actually push 4, kind of go back over both of them, and it'll kind of smear them together a little bit. That kind of a different color. Like so. So see, that kind of keeps the harmony because they're in the same value. It's still giving that shadow kind of a look. And I'm actually going to go here and I'm going to grab a little bit of a reddish color. Come down through here. I'm going to throw in some red. Kind of give a different shape. Maybe some red bushes are down here. And I can grab maybe this tree brush. Oh, that's the thick one. That's not the one I want. I'll just use the fan brush. Just to add a little bit of, maybe some grassy limbs or something are sticking up. Doesn't really matter. But just kind of, that way they all kind of have that similar bush shape, so they're the same kind of bushes, you know. So I've kind of got that built up on there. And come back to the bush brush. I'm going to grab that brownish color again. I'm going to come up to where it's a little bit lighter. Right in through here where the sun might be hitting it. I'm going to put in some highlights and I'm going to push 4, kind of go over it a little bit to kind of blend it in, like so. I'm going to grab the green. Brush. Throw in some different leaves just to kind of break it up a little bit. And maybe some grass. So I got that in there, hit 4. Fade that in, push some of that dark up into it. Just like that. Again, making sure to kind of go along with the topography. Bring some of those down through here. Up a little bit. Make that pop, then go to 4. Just kind of drag that around a little bit and let those blend. Something like that. That kind of really, gives you a nice pop of color, but at the same time, not overwhelming. you know. Bring some of those in there as well. So just kind of an interesting kind of a look and feel. To kind of sit here and push back and forth and play around on it. Oops. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get rid of this. I don't like that there. There we go. Better feeling. Then I'm going to switch to a few hand ones of these. Bring those in a little bit, like so. Right, now I'm going to drop back down to this rock layer. I'm going to turn off the Protect Transparency, zoom in a little bit. Let's go back to here. I'm going to grab that sea foam. I want to bring this, pop this out a little bit. So let's add just a little right there. We're going to add it in and then kind of scrub it back. Kind of add it in, push 4, just kind of scrub it back. And then just kind of maybe go along the edge here and break them. You can even switch to something like the charcoal brush if you want to. And then just kind of grab that dark, just kind of fuzz the edge a little bit. Back to like the sea foam. I cut it in a little bit. And then just smudge this. And you got a nice reflection there. But don't be afraid to kind of come in and throw in some highlights here and there, just, you know, random little spots where it might be catching the sun. Just where it kind of makes sense. And then just kind of go back and soften it out a little bit. And that gives you that feeling. I'm going to soften these a little bit more horizontal. And then the other thing I want to do here is on the water. I have this water ripple here. Again, I'm going to turn off block size ratio, kind of stretch that out. Let's border it. Make a new layer, turn off pigment, go to linear dodge. Actually, for this one, we can just go to overlay. Maybe airbrush. Just kind of come down the middle. Go to recent colors. Just put some in, take a little bit out. And then you can always come in and kind of transform it. Like so. And get kind of that cool effect. I think I'm also going to add just this least little bit of a halo of orange. Right around here. Like so. And maybe a little bit more white. I'll punch that up a little bit. Maybe some of this pale dogwood too. Let's go with another linear dodge. A little bit down through here. And just kind of back and forth a little bit. And the smudge tool. Just to kind of soften it. Just add a few sparkles. Go along the edge, kind of give it a silver lining. And you can even come up here in the clouds and add a few spots. Not everywhere, a few spots here and there. Soften it. Something like that. Now, one of the things as I'm looking at this, I'm like wondering what it would look like with a different paper, different canvas. So you can always change your canvas and see what you think of it. I kind of like it with the watercolor canvas instead. So don't be afraid to do that either. And then you can come in If you want to get rid of some of the canvas textures here and there, you can. It's just a matter of coming in and smudging it. Or you can leave it. I mean, that is a good way to leave texture and add texture. Oops. Didn't mean to hit the microphone there. So, you know, just something to think about. The way that you want to have it look in the final piece. And then, of course, if you want to, you can always come in and add stuff like, you know, little rays of sunshine. Like so. Then all you can do is take your airbrush, filter, Gaussian blur it. Something like that. And then filter, Gaussian blur again. You hit T and line it up a little better with your sun. Like so. You bring your opacity down just a little bit. Up to your eraser. Go soft round. Maybe erase just a little bit down here on this one. So you have more of it shining up there. Just add in some of these other colors here and there. Kind of come in and soften them. You can even hit it with the Gaussian blur one more time. Like so. Yeah, and then there you go. So you kind of got some different stuff here and there that's kind of added on, and play around with the opacities and kind of the way it feels, but that gives you a good idea of some different things to try. You know, and then from there you can just add in different wildlife if you wanted to. Like you could do flocks of birds, of course. So let's say, for example, you just want to go up here to the top. Maybe just throw in some birds. Then you definitely could. And there you go. So yeah, so give it a try. Let me know what you think. And if you see that there's any edges that are off or anything, you can always go in and change it, move it around. Like if there's a halo of different, stuff. Sometimes you'll have that happen where like you remove some stuff with a selection tool. So I just like to drag it, make it a little bit different size so you don't have any white halo around the edges. All right, give this one a try. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to see what you've done. See you on the next one.